Good morning, my fellow scientists. It's Wednesday, February 23rd, 2017, and I want to talk more about post-scarcity. So I talked yesterday about this idea that maybe Star Trek was sort of a symbol for a post-scarcity utopia, and that maybe the Enterprise was like the scientific enterprise, symbolically. And that got me thinking about post-scarcity in general and how, in some sense, these days, we have post-scarcity for some things, right? Books are post-scarce. Every book ever written can be copied infinitely to everyone who wants to read it, essentially without limitation. Music, same thing. We're kind of fighting that post-scarcity, in fact, because we want there to be a scarcity so that people can be more easily rewarded by the mechanisms we have to reward people for production. The mechanisms we have to reward people for production depend on there being a bottleneck, a scarcity point, a limitation that you have to pay to overcome. Pure abundance really doesn't help artists get rewarded for their work, which is kind of odd when you think about it, right? We have the most abundant production capacity ever for anything, essentially infinite production, and yet in order to see to it that the producers get paid, we have to limit the producers. That's just a very strange consequence of the world we live in. So I put a link below to a cracked article by David Wong. He wrote a book called This Book is Full of Spiders. Seriously, dude, don't touch it. Also, John Dies at the End, which was made into a movie. I've read them both. I purchased them both. I purchased the audiobooks for both of them. So I've given him a chunk of my change, despite the fact that I certainly could have stolen all of his work, right? I mean, I have no doubt that with enough searching and perseverance, you could download his book, his audiobook, and his movie for free. And that would be a crap move on my part, and it wouldn't help him pay his mortgage or get his sandwiches, but one could do that, and I would still get the enjoyment from his work if I stole it, and I wouldn't diminish his work in the sense that I would not have made it less available to anyone else or even him by stealing it. And yet, he did not get the reward. He produced... right? If we made his books and movies available totally for free, we would all be richer because they're fun books and movies. And if everyone had access for free to those books and movies, everyone would be better off. And yet, he wouldn't be able to pay his mortgage. So by making everyone richer, we have stymied his ability to pay his bills. And I think that's just an odd consequence of our economy, our economic structure. If we had a matter replicator, if we had the Star Trek matter replicator, we would end up in a situation where no one could pay their bills despite the fact that everyone was absurdly wealthy. And I just want to leave you with that. That's a bizarre consequence. And I think we're talking about it in terms of science fiction, but it's not science fiction for David Wong, who wrote This Book is Full of Spiders, and it's not science fiction for people who make movies, and it's not science fiction soon for people who produce things that are robotically produced tomorrow. It's not science fiction for people who drive taxis. Taxis are going to be post-scarcity in 10 years. So we should start thinking about that now. When we make everyone rich and prevent people from paying their bills, how do we resolve that contradiction?